Thousands of years ago, the Eastern demon god broke the seal and entered the three realms. To maintain peace in the three realms, the war god of the Red Earth took up his sacred sword to confront the demon god. Seeing a maiden like her come to fight, the demon god decided to teach the war god a lesson. Their battle shook the heavens and the earth. Fortunately, in the end, the war god of the Red Earth emerged victorious, and thus the three realms have remained peaceful to this day. However, the demon god was only temporarily sealed, while the war god sacrificed himself in that battle. In this small sect, the sect leader informed the little orchid flower that the demon god's seal was still secure, urging it to quickly cultivate into a human form. After some time, the little orchid flower, which had been cultivating, transformed into a human. But on her very first day, she was captured by the celestial court for violating some heavenly law. At this very moment, a cult on earth used magic to break the seal and bring back the demon god once more. The demon god decided to ascend to the heavens to find that sect to replenish his strength. Despite the cult members' continuous pleas for the demon god to stop, as he had not yet fully recovered his strength. As he began to sweep through the heavens, a Buddha named Nine Profundities stood in his way. He then continuously unleashed wondrous techniques and summoned the strongest forces at his disposal. Nine Profundities believed that the newly resurrected demon god calling upon such powerful magic was akin to self-destruction. However, the demon god did not care, even as his face began to bleed. Below, the little orchid flower sensed that something was happening when suddenly the demon god fell right beside her. She was shocked to realize that this was the demon god she feared, but Nine Profundities had followed him down. The demon god, seeing that the little orchid flower still had some vitality, bit her. When she awoke, the little orchid flower could not understand why she had swapped bodies with the demon god after just one bite. Her chest remained the same, but the demon god on the other side was already mischievously meddling with her body, forcing her to remain silent. The little orchid flower wondered why a demon god like him would allow himself to be beaten so miserably and then fall into this predicament. He then used the body to threaten her, making her feel that a demon god like him was truly shameful. He claimed that he had intentionally lost, but such a nonsensical reason was outdated long ago. The demon god wanted her to stop causing trouble for him, but he was the one who had trapped her here. Seeing that the cage was quite sturdy, she began to taunt him, so he cut her hair to teach her a lesson. Overwhelmed with frustration, she also pulled his hair. This led the demon god to strip her body of all its hair, causing her to sulk and burst into tears. Seeing her own face looking fierce yet crying was somewhat embarrassing, so the demon god decided to restore her hair to stop her crying. She was tired of being inside and wanted to get out, so he decided to help her escape by destroying the place, which would allow her to leave on her own. But previously, the little orchid flower had heard from her master about how this tower was used to imprison criminals because it could lock away the strength of the offenders. And in all of the celestial realm, no one had ever destroyed this place. At that moment, the little orchid flower did not believe that the demon god could destroy it, as he was in her body, and her body did not possess the demonic power he needed to cast such destructive spells. He then tested her demonic power and indeed, it was as weak and delicate as that of a little flower. The demon god felt this ordeal was tiring, but outwardly he remained boastful, claiming it was all part of his plan. The reason he had put her in there was intentional. When the two were facing each other, Nine Profundities rushed over and decided to cast a spell, calling upon Chang'e the moon goddess to send someone to completely annihilate the demon god's body. The demon god, in the body of the little orchid flower, had to rush over and block the spell before his body was harmed. Nine Profundities did not know whose body it was, so the demon god had to pretend to be playful to introduce himself as a flower that had cultivated into a fairy. Qiu Yuyan did not suspect that a fairy could block the recent attack. So, he asked why the fairy prevented him from destroying the body of the demon god. The demon god, in this body, fabricated a reason convincing enough for Qiu Yuyan. Thus, he agreed to the idea of imprisoning the demon god and having the fairy guard him. Now, the demon god still boasts that he has a way to help Little Orchid escape. Little Orchid suggested that the demon god should use her body to go outside and seek help. The demon god grunted but pretended that he had already considered this scenario. The demon god wondered if she wasn't afraid that he would harm others. She was not afraid because the heavenly soldiers and generals were enough to deal with him. When he invited her to join the demons, she bluntly refused. She also did not believe that there was anyone here who would help the demon god. However, he reminded her that this was a prison, so there must be other prisoners. Thus, he left. Afterward, Little Orchid, remembering her master, dreamt that he had abandoned her. Later, the demon god returned with a man whom Little Orchid recognized as a dark fairy. He thought the demon god had brought him here to free his lover. So, he attempted to molest Little Orchid's body. Little Orchid inside had to scream at him to remove his hand. The demon god revealed that the way to escape was to destroy the core connecting the towers. Of course, it was impossible under normal circumstances. But at a certain moment, the core would weaken and shine down on where they stood. If that happened, the demon god would need the dark fairy to strike the ground as deeply as possible. As soon as he finished speaking, that moment occurred. The dark fairy immediately struck the ground with his strongest blow at that time, creating a hole small enough for the demon god to summon a demonic creature. It looked small but was actually very powerful. The demon creature then grew large and plunged straight into the core above. The light from the heavenly court prevented the demon god from summoning this demon. So, he had to wait for the right moment when the darkness shone on the point below the core to call it forth. The demon god now also revealed his identity to the dark fairy, and the barrier imprisoning Little Orchid was also opened. After escaping the prison, the dark fairy ran away, scared of the demon god. The demon god then wanted to reclaim his body from Little Orchid. She wanted him to swear that he would not harm her. In return, he said that demons only swear to other demons, not to other species. So, she turned away. He rushed to demand it but was sent flying by her, landing several meters away. Upon checking, he found her and was so strong that he broke his neck. At that moment, the heavenly soldiers and generals arrived because they saw the place had been destroyed. Little Orchid called the heavenly general for help. But the heavenly general, seeing the demon god, hesitated. However, leaving now would be too shameful. So, the heavenly general struck down lightning on Little Orchid's location. She was unharmed, but her body was scorched. The heavenly general struck again, burning it black, forcing her to flee. She then suddenly disappeared into space and later reappeared in the human world. The demon creature followed her, revealing that it was a part of the demon god's soul. The demon god had died and was now in the underworld, fighting to escape. Little Orchid asked it to take her to the underworld to recover her body. It then led Little Orchid to a town that was nearly dead. The townspeople could only be seen by demons because they had fallen into the boundary between hell and the human world. The people were like wandering ghosts, and this place also housed the gate leading to the underworld. The demon told her to place a drop of the demon god's blood on the door. She knew how terrifying the underworld was because her master had warned her. But now, if she wanted to reclaim her body, she had no choice but to go there. As soon as she stepped into the underworld, she witnessed its chaos. The demon informed her that the evil spirit in front of her was the one she needed to defeat to go deeper. This evil spirit deliberately ignored her, thinking she was the demon god. But another evil spirit approached, forcing the first to fight reluctantly. Little Orchid Flower could only defend herself against this evil spirit's attacks. But the demon saw her wasting the demon god's powerful body and entered to fight in her stead. The evil spirit was then crushed into dust and stomped flat by a foot. The other two evil spirits joined the fray, but the demon saw they were still just sprouts. The female evil spirit turned into sand to blind the demon for the outside one to attack, but the demon easily caught her by the throat. The one outside shot an attack, which the demon called out the female to absorb and then reflect back. The demon then gave them two choices, die or submit to the demon god. So, they resigned themselves to serve, ready to appear at his call. The demon then left and told Little Orchid Flower to continue on. They then went through the exit of this place and arrived somewhere else. Seeing a crowd gathered there, Little Orchid Flower asked and learned that the Lady of Fate was absent, so the Naiha Bridge was closed, causing all those going to be reborn to gather here. The demon wanted Little Orchid Flower to go elsewhere since they weren't there to be reborn. They then went to the mansion of King Yama and wondered why there were no guards. Inside, they found that the demon god had made everyone kneel. The demon god rushed to reclaim his body but was stopped by Little Orchid Flower. She wouldn't let him take the body so easily, so he threatened to kill her master. This made her stronger, and she caused the demon god's body to knock itself unconscious against the wall. King Yama was pleased to see this. He and Black and White Impermanence then decided to take the demon god's body elsewhere to think of a plan. The bag containing Little Orchid Flower's body was to be dealt with immediately. When she woke up, Little Orchid Flower and the demon god were in the same body again. They could only control half of the body each. The demon god kept trying to drive her out, but when she asked where her body was, it turned out to be in the incinerator. She threw a tantrum, demanding the demon god to retrieve half of her body, or else she would stay in this body to prevent him from doing anything. Knowing full well the demon god couldn't drive her out, she decided to stay and cause trouble, so the demon god had to compromise. He then got out of bed with her and tried to walk. They couldn't cooperate well, so they ended up splitting apart loudly. Black Impermanence came to ask if the demon god needed anything, and he just requested the Book of Life and Death. Black Impermanence then informed King Yama that the demon god seemed unstable, so they took the opportunity to eliminate him. But when King Yama arrived and saw the demon god standing firm, he was a bit pale but decided to execute him upon seeing the body acting strangely, constantly sitting and standing. However, the demon god reacted in time, but before he could strike, he was stopped by Little Orchid Flower. Black Impermanence took the chance to escape, leaving King Yama to laugh it off as a joke. After a night of checking the Book of Life and Death, the demon god found a new body for Little Orchid to temporarily borrow. However, leaving was not easy because King Yama had sent people to stop them. The demon god temporarily took full control of the body to fight back. He summoned countless demons to clear out King Yama's troops and even captured Black and White Impermanence. King Yama had no choice but to give up, and the demon god warned him to keep the Book of Life and Death safe because he would return. On the road, Little Orchid asked where the soldiers had gone. The demon god said the beasts he summoned had transported the soldiers to heaven, and if he didn't kill them, Yuyan in heaven would take care of it. But at that moment, Little Orchid remembered that the seal in heaven was not yet repaired. The demon god thought it was a trivial matter. She forced him to help her repair it, but he refused. So, she applied lipstick and powder to his face, making him agree but with 3 conditions. First, she must not speak nonsense without his permission. Second, she must not interrupt his work. And third, she must beg him. She begged softly, but he refused, so she screamed until his ears rang. He then let the demon go to do it instead, and in a blink of an eye, it was done. The demon god then returned to the demon world, where the demon army welcomed him. When he met the commander of this army, the demon god asked him to investigate the whereabouts of the girl whose body he intended for Little Orchid to borrow. After 1,000 years, he wanted to take a bath. While bathing, Little Orchid kept complaining about seeing a man's body so naked. Moreover, the soul inside also bathed to show off. After a while of complaining, the demon god wanted her to look carefully because what could she see in all this mist? So, she looked again, but the upper part was still exposed, making her feel like half her soul wanted to die. The demon god thought his body was perfect, so she used a scar on it to argue. Looking at the scar, the demon god remembered something and called the water sprite to do a task. He asked her if she wanted to become a water sprite too, but she said no because water sprites only last a few days before disappearing, as her master had taught her. She praised her master more than the demon god, so he flicked her, and she had to correct herself, saying he was more dreadful. But now there was a problem. The demon god had broken the bath, so the water began to drain, and the lower part was gradually exposed. Little Orchid wanted to gouge out her eyes, but the demon god tried to stop her and promised not to bathe anymore so she wouldn't have to see. A few days later, the commander asked the soldiers how they had been observing the demon god lately, and the soldiers found it strange. The demon god sometimes acted demure like a girl but at other times was irritable. Suddenly, the demon god went somewhere, so the commander flew up to ask and found out he was going to the human world on business. He then took Little Orchid to the Arctic, where there was a seal on a snowy mountain. Little Orchid wondered what he was doing there. He still didn't say and then told her not to touch anything unless she wanted to be frozen. Little Orchid carelessly tried and almost got frozen for real. Suddenly, something sucked them both in, so the demon god broke all the ice. Suddenly, the suction appeared again and pulled them both out of the demon god's body. Waking up in a cave, Little Orchid knew that if she called the demon god now, he would execute her immediately. However, he sought her out, seeing it as a rare opportunity. Having been provoked by her for so long, he now saw the chance to erase his irritation. She warned him that there was something behind him, but he was not fooled. She acted quite convincingly and then threw some ice cubes at him before running away. After dodging the demon god's attacks, she managed to lose him. But then she discovered 2 gates. One gate looked too intimidating to enter, but the other had stones on the path that would injure the soul upon touch. So, she knew she had no choice but to go through the dangerous gate. Staying would mean the demon god would surely come after her. Upon entering, she saw only darkness, but a fragrant scent led her to an exit. There, she encountered the ice statue of an ancient female general who had sealed the demon god. Suddenly, a deity appeared and accused her of causing trouble, but she was only looking for the demon god's body. He brought the body but created illusions to prevent her from easily entering it. She tried all of them, wanting to bang her head in frustration. She decided to climb higher for a better view but was knocked down by him. The demon god also arrived, intent on dealing with Little Orchid Flower. The deity wanted the demon god to focus on this place. The two then argued and began to fight. Little Orchid Flower wanted to find the body to enter. She saw the protective spell the demon god had placed on the real body and ran towards it. The demon god tried to stop her, but the deity saw an opening and attacked. However, he was impaled by the demon god and turned back into a sword. Thanks to this, little orchid flower managed to enter the body, and the demon god had to continue sharing it with her. She wondered whose statue it was, and he told her it was of the red earth who had once battled him. The demon god then absorbed the sword and left, telling little orchid flower to show him the way to find a new sword sheath. The two then arrived at a monster market, where many monsters traded with each other. The demon god was confident that anyone who saw him would fall for him, but when he caught his reflection, he became angry and wanted to burn down the area. After visiting a tea house to inquire about where to buy a sword sheath, the owner mistook the demon god's request as wanting to buy beauty. So, little orchid flower had to ask instead. She learned that ever since the owner of this monster market arrived, all weapons had been moved for sale behind this forest. The demon god left immediately, but the owner wanted him to drink a cup of tea before leaving. He was about to react violently, so little orchid flower drank it instead and left. However, the tea contained a soul-sleeping drug from the owner. If one's power was not high enough, they would surely be dazed and unable to do anything. Walking down the road, the half of the demon god's body controlled by little orchid flower was affected by the soul-sleeping powder and felt unbearably hot. Little orchid flower wanted to destroy it for good since it was the demon god's body anyway. The daughter of the tea house owner who had flirted with them earlier was caught by the demon god, knowing full well it was their scheme. He summoned the evil spirit from before to control it and demanded an antidote. Since there was none, he threatened to impale them, but the mother ran out and was also controlled by him. She was ready to give her own blood as the antidote. Smelling it and seeing little orchid flower calm down, he accepted the antidote. After little orchid flower drank it, she fell asleep. The demon god was still unwilling to forgive the mother and daughter. The head of the monster market came to stop him. This person knew the demon god's identity because of the immense demonic power within him. As for punishing the mother and daughter for often capturing men, he ordered them to go to the lake to be punished. But the demon god did not let them go, wanting to take their lives. The market owner begged for the demon god's forgiveness and allowed him to choose anything from the monster market as compensation. The demon god cut off the snake mother's tail and then agreed to let them go, demanding the owner find him a blacksmith of magical treasures. As soon as the demon god left, the master decided to punish the mother and daughter of the snake family. The mother only asked for her daughter's forgiveness, so he agreed, but the mother was sentenced to death. He called his subordinates and ordered them to drain all the blood from her body because elixirs made from female serpent blood are very nourishing. But suddenly, the demon god returned because he forgot to take the snake's tail. After retrieving the item, the demon god left again. The demon god followed the lamp given by the master to a frozen lake and then arrived at the second demon market within the heart of this glacier. This place is where weapons and treasures are traded. Passing by a women's lingerie shop, little orchid felt the urge to buy, but the demon god firmly refused, making people look at the demon god as if he were a pervert. But the demon god went to the forge to attend to important matters. At the forge, he encountered one of the heavenly generals, Tram Hung. This person had once fought with the demon god and had his axe damaged. Tram Hung needed the axe to split a mountain to save his mother, but since the axe was destroyed by the demon god, he now had to wait 1,000 years to gather the materials to repair it. Little orchid felt sorry for him, but the demon god didn't care. The demon god took out a sword and asked the forge to use the snake's tail to create a sword sheath, as only the snake's scales were needed. But Tram Hung's axe required 1,000-year-old cultivated snake bone, so little orchid wanted to give the bone to Tram Hung. She thought the demon god should take responsibility for his actions, but he didn't care, so she humbled herself to beg. When begging didn't work, she threatened to make his handsome face cry like a weakling, so the demon god complied. The demon god set a date to retrieve the sword and then left. Suddenly, Tram Hung followed and sent a letter to the demon god. Since Tram Hung was not good at speaking but wanted to express gratitude, he decided to follow and become a disciple to the demon god. The demon god didn't need a disciple, but Tram Hung brought the apron that little orchid liked, which made her agree immediately. Suddenly, both the demon god and Tram Hung sensed a treasure in a nearby shop and went to see it. The treasure they saw was a flower, but the shop owner did not want to sell it. So, Tram Hung brandished his newly repaired axe to threaten and began to negotiate money with him. The demon god saw that Tram Hung was somewhat useful, but little orchid changed her mind and no longer needed this little brother. She feared that Tram Hung would learn the demon god's bad habits, but the demon god wanted Tram Hung to join the demons with him, so he took Tram Hung along. The shop owner saw a black spirit stone left behind and realized that only the demon god had such a thing, and since when did the demon god pay for things? The demon god then took Tram Hung to where his mother was imprisoned, but the reason the demon god came here was to find someone else. Little Orchid told us that Tram Hung's mother was a goddess in heaven who neglected her duties to love a human and was punished by her brother, who imprisoned her under a mountain. The person the demon god wanted to find was Dung Tien, or more precisely, Ni Lang then, the brother of Tram Hung's mother. The demon god then took the flower from Tram Hung and placed it on his hand to protect half of Little Orchid. The demon god then sent the demon somewhere, and Dung Tien's subordinates also arrived. They did not know the true power of the demon god, so he decided to show them. The first one was immediately dealt with by a couple summoned by the demon god. The second one was pierced by Tram Hung. Tram Hung then dealt with a snake woman while the demon god fought a fire-using man. The demon god decided to burn them both to see who could withstand the heat better, while Tram Hung chanted a spell to make trees grow on the snake woman's body and drain her life force. Both quickly dealt with their opponents, and now only this giant remained. Little Orchid Flower was puzzled because the demon god said he wanted to lead Tram Hung to become a demon, yet here he was helping Tram Hung save her mother. The demon god explained that he helped Tram Hung to draw out Yang Jian, and by helping Tram Hung kill the heavenly general, Tram Hung would be severed from the ranks of the heavenly soldiers. And when Tram Hung saved her mother, he would burn Tram Hung's mother to make Tram Hung fall into darkness and become a demon. Seeing that there were still two men in front of the giant monkey, the demon god flew up and left Tram Hung to deal with them. But as he flew past, the demon god realized it was a trap, but it was too late because Tram Hung had been split in two and turned into a spirit stone. In reality, Yang Jian had transformed into those two men, and the group they had defeated was just stone statues created by Yang Jian to deceive and make the demon god lose his guard. When Tram Hung was dealt with, they would all attack the demon god together. The demon god was not too worried because Tram Hung's spirit stone was still intact, but Yang Jian shattered it right in front of the demon god, angering him and causing him to summon a divine beast to attack. But when Yang Jian retaliated, the demon god fled. Hearing his sister's cries, Yang Jian did not know what else to do because rules are rules. At this time, the demon god had returned to the underworld, hoping that Tram Hung would return here. Hoping to be in time, he was suddenly blocked by a shield. 9 profundities had come down personally to prevent the demon god from saving Tram Hung. The demon god did not understand why everyone was trying to stop him from saving Tram Hung. 9 profundities believed that if heaven wanted him here, it was because what the demon god was doing was wrong. Seeing that the demon god was adamant about saving someone and was gradually changing. 9 profundities wondered what had happened in the past 2 days that made the demon god change like this. 9 profundities had been taught that even if one is a demon, if there is a bit of good intention in the heart, one must be saved and not destroyed. 9 profundities thought he had seen a bit of good in the demon god, but the demon god declared that if he could not save Tram Hung today, he would bury this underworld along with 9 profundities, making the good that he saw disappear immediately. 9 profundities used an attack while the demon god had to use a defense. Little Orchid Flower did not understand why the demon god was still defending in this critical situation. He revealed that Tram Hung was completely dead, but he still had a way to save Tram Hung. However, for this method, he needed to concentrate on chanting spells, so he handed over the defense to Little Orchid Flower. If she could not do it, then Tram Hung could not be saved. 9 profundities realized that the demon god was about to use a spell to create a soul. The earth had begun to shake, and the leader of the demons did not know why the demon god had to go to such lengths. 9 profundities warned the demon god to stop because resurrecting the dead was taboo. 9 profundities had to increase the attack, causing Little Orchid Flower to start struggling. But the demon god still needed a little more time. Despite her soul being damaged after 9 profundities' powerful techniques, Little Orchid Flower still held on so the demon god could continue chanting. Everyone in heaven and earth knew what was happening. When Yang Jian sent someone to disrupt the demon god, they were suddenly attacked. Yang Jian did not allow attacking this person. At this point, 9 profundities yielded to the demon god and stopped his spell, but he still advised the demon god one more time. The demon god now asked Little Orchid Flower if she was ready to violate the heavenly rules to help Tram Hung. She wondered why the demon god was suddenly so kind. He simply liked to do as he pleased. With no way out, she decided to help. 9 profundities saw that the demon god and Little Orchid Flower continued and still tried to stop them. The demon god believed that what he was doing was witnessed by heaven and that heaven would also be on his side. 9 Profundities saw the image of his old master saying they should not hesitate too much but make decisions based on feelings because heaven only stands with the righteous. 9 Profundities then decided to give up. He would leave because he wanted to see how the demon god would face the consequences and also wanted to see what the first good deed the demon god did would be like, and also wanted to see if heaven really stood with him. However, Little Orchid Flower's master had sent a shadow here. Seeing the energy pillar summoned by the demon god, she cut it off, breaking the demon god's spell. Although very frustrated, the demon god had to admit that they had lost. However, the demon suddenly returned and reported that the task the demon god had entrusted to it was completed. It turns out that before the battle, the demon god had sent the demon to the underworld to monitor the book of life and death. If anyone died, it had to be corrected immediately, so Tram Hung was still alive. Originally, the demon god planned that if Tram Hung's mother was burned to death, the demon would alter the book so she could be reborn. Then, Tram Hung would be allowed to reunite with his mother before the plan continued in the long term. But this move unexpectedly saved Tram Hung. Little Orchid complained that being beaten nearly to death was almost pointless, but at least there was a good outcome. The demon god, now tired, returned to rest. Meanwhile, Little Orchid's master, who knew that Tram Hung was still alive, only then cut off the demon god's spell to prevent it from backfiring on the caster. After all, they had the intention of doing good. At that time, the demon god had come to the human world and was now in the midst of a battlefield. This city was about to fall. The demon god's purpose here was to find someone about to die for Little Orchid to possess. Meanwhile, Qiu Yuyan was being reprimanded for letting the demon god go. The demon army also came to examine the issue and to find out where the demon god was. The human side also joined this gathering to complete the set. The human representative was the ancestor of Dung Tian's family. Since Dung Tian had become a deity and was currently detained at home, he came to announce that Dung Tian would not return to heaven for a while. The 3 realms now had enough strength to speak on equal terms with each other. Returning to the demon god and Little Orchid, the two entered the city to find a person named Yuyan Tan. This person would be the new body for Little Orchid. They did not find her around the city, so the demon god went into the city. When he encountered a house guarded by many soldiers, he found his target. It was known that the life of this girl had only a few hours left, so the demon god wanted to deal with it immediately. But Little Orchid disliked doing evil deeds because stealing is worse than borrowing. Inside, they saw Yuyan Tan with a mute husband. Seeing the couple's plight made Little Orchid want to alter the book of life and death to help, but the demon god had just exhausted his magical power. Now, even fighting black and white impermanence would be difficult. The demon god wanted to take advantage of a loophole to deal with Yuyan Tan immediately, but Little Orchid stopped him. Yuyan Tan felt someone's presence, but because the demon god had used an invisibility spell, she thought she was just worrying too much. Yuyan Tan then bid farewell to her husband, knowing that the enemy would invade tonight and her chances of survival were none. She left with tears, causing Little Orchid even more heartache, but the demon god forbade her to cry with his face. She felt sorry for the couple but knew that life and death were determined by fate. However, the demon god laughed at this notion of fate, so Little Orchid wanted him to help the couple. Thus, the demon god decided to do something to help this couple find happiness. During that time, the leader of the demon clan and the military advisor did not know where the demon god had disappeared to. The last time the demon god was seen was at the monster market buying weapons, and they also remembered that the demon god had once asked them to find a girl for him. So, it's possible that the demon god was doing something personal. The military advisor then cast a spell and produced something that could make the demon god obey them. Because the 3 realms had agreed not to harm the demon god, but surely behind the scenes, everyone was still doing as they pleased, so they did not trust this agreement. Meanwhile, the demon god stood before the city and ordered the evil spirit controlling the sand to create a sandstorm to sweep away the enemy troops but not to kill anyone. A sandstorm then swept through, instantly blowing away the soldiers. But in the heavenly realm, a heavenly general sensed the demon god's demonic power and ordered a lightning strike. The subordinate questioned the agreement, so the heavenly general threatened to call someone else to replace him, saying this one was just following orders and did not want to be tired from being accused of disobeying. But suddenly, the subordinate returned, reporting that the demon god was not seen below. Still, the order was to strike with lightning, so the subordinate had to carry it out. At this time, the demon god was being complained at by Little Orchid Flower for just helping people and now seemingly intending to kill them. Because the demon god only promised to relieve Yuyan Tan of her worries, not to spare lives. Little Orchid Flower looked at Yuyan Tan and realized she resembled the war god of the Red Earth from the past. She thought the demon god was planning a childish revenge, but he was not free to seek revenge. Yuyan, reunited with her lover, was overjoyed because they had managed to keep the city and no longer needed to die. They could be together forever. Little Orchid Flower, seeing this scene, could not bring herself to act. Suddenly, the demon god sensed something ominous. Yuyan was then secretly stabbed by her lover and was about to die. Little Orchid Flower understood why her lifespan was so short. The demon god told Little Orchid Flower to prepare to enter the body. As Yuyan's soul emerged, Little Orchid Flower quickly moved to enter it. Her lover also intended to die to be with Yuyan in the Golden Stream, but Little Orchid Flower, in Yuyan's body, rose up and reproached him for his betrayal. Lightning suddenly struck, and the demon god had to erect a barrier to block it. He lacked demonic power because someone had just chanted a spell on him. The invisibility spell was also nullified, so Little Orchid Flower had to do something to prevent the city from being destroyed. The demon god needed her help. The barrier in front of them had collapsed, so the heavenly thunder was preparing to strike again. The demon god knew the heavenly thunder needed time to prepare, so he was about to set up a formation and needed her to keep that formation active by using his claws to scratch his hand and let the blood flow. His body was immortal, so nothing could affect him, not even heavenly thunder. This barrier was created to protect her and the city. The demon god then summoned the little evil spirit to hold off the heavenly thunder, reminding it that this mission would be very dangerous due to its low cultivation level. But it was willing to give its life for him. If she wanted it to survive, she had to quickly make the barrier. The evil lightning spirit encountered the heavenly lightning, and the heavenly lightning realized that those without shirts indeed belonged to the lightning element. However, it was shirtless due to poverty. The heavenly lightning intended to offer it a job above, but it kept attacking without letting him speak. Annoyed, the heavenly lightning decided to fight back. Afterward, they fought each other, but it was clear that the heavenly lightning was completely superior, as a minor demon could not possibly defeat the heavenly soldiers. The evil spirit was beaten until its head was cracked and its forehead bruised, losing half of its limbs, but it still resolutely refused to answer when asked for its name. Suddenly, a young man appeared, surprising the heavenly lightning with another unexpected arrival. This man introduced himself as someone from the human realm. The evil spirit, seeing that this man was also shirtless, recognized him as a fellow lightning enthusiast. At the same time, this man had a stutter, so it took a while to explain that he came to follow an agreement to prevent the heavenly lightning from harming the demon god. The demon god had stopped casting spells and decided to rest for a while to recover his magical power. The demon god then called the evil spirit back and allowed it to retreat to heal its wounds. He then took Little Orchid away, realizing that he had fulfilled his promise to her, as she seemed to like her new body very much. The demon god brought her to a field of flowers, where the two would say goodbye. Little Orchid was very grateful for the journey with the demon god. They had done quite a lot together. From escaping prison to causing chaos in the underworld and fleeing from there, to shopping together and fighting against Jung Tian. Finally, they repelled Qu Yuyan and saved Tram Hung. She advised the demon god to limit creating karma again because he was the first to enter her life and leave her with the most unforgettable impressions. She then turned away and could only wish the demon god well. Meanwhile, the two young lightning players fought for a while before forgetting why they were fighting in the first place, but who cares when the fight is so thrilling that it cannot be stopped. The next morning, the leader of the human faction came to meet Jung Tian, who is now detained at home and unable to return to heaven. Standing in front of the family's tombstone, Jung Tian was quite sentimental. The leader needed some information from Jung Tian, so he wondered who this person was. This person quickly introduced himself as someone who could travel through dimensions and see many things. When he was an ordinary person, he was the king of a dynasty, Vong Mang. Vong Mang was investigating something called the Shadow of the Three Realms. Jung Tian shared some information but still did not know the real consequences the Shadow of the Three Realms would cause. According to Vong Mang, he only saw images of a dark cave that would swallow the three realms. After many times of dimension traveling, the image remained the same. Suddenly, the stuttering young man using lightning was brought here with severe injuries. According to the story, while fighting with the heavenly thunder, this person was attacked by a dark shadow. A fairy came here to request that Vong Mang attend another Three Realms meeting to discuss the matter of the newly emerged Shadow of the Three Realms. Meanwhile, Little Orchid Flower encountered a pig spirit. This pig, smelling her scent of death yet living, demanded to eat her or have her become his wife. She refused, and suddenly the demon god appeared, and she asked him to deal with the pig. The demon god was low on demonic power but still stronger than the pig in a fistfight. The pig played dirty and shot dirt at him. He recognized the dirt and demanded the pig reveal where it came from. With the information that it was from Mount Theanin, the demon god took some of the pig's demonic power and then released it. Little Orchid Flower thought he was still following her, but he claimed he was just passing by and then opened a separate portal. At this moment, Little Orchid Flower discovered that her body could decay even with a soul inside. Thinking she had been tricked by the demon god, she decided to find him to settle the matter. Remembering that the demon god seemed interested in Mount Theanin, she had the pig lead the way there. But after a long journey without reaching the destination, her body was nearly falling apart. Suddenly, the owner of the pig arrived, claiming to be the master of Mount Theanin, and knowing she was the orchid flower spirit, decided to help her find the person who had betrayed her. He told her to enter a jar to go to Mount Theanin and then change into another body. Seeing that he seemed to be a good person, she agreed to follow him. After 3 days adrift at sea, Little Orchid Flower was finally led by this man to his Mount Theanin. In ancient times, when heaven and earth were in chaos, thousands of strange creatures hid in the darkness and formed a great deity that had to divide the world into day and night. Creatures of the dark would instantly perish when stepping into the light, and for this reason, the battle between the two extremes of light and darkness has never ceased. This continued until the Queen Mother reappeared and sealed all the dark creatures out of the 3 realms. Later, these creatures formed a mass and created another world outside the 3 realms, known as the Shadow of the 3 Realms. Vong Mang then inquired about the dark creature captured by the heavenly realm in yesterday's battle with the heavenly thunder. However, the creature perished upon touching the light, leaving only a finger behind. Vong Mang realized what the dirt on his hand was. Surely, this very dirt had helped the shadow of the 3 realms exist before the light, and Vong Mang knew that this dirt was most abundant on the island of Theanin. At that time, Little Orchid Flower was given a body similar to her original one. The man explained that this body was made from clay. It was clay mixed with a special kind of soil called Tusin Wang. With Tusin Wang, the clay could contain a soul, but it could only be used for 3 days before the Tusin Wang dried up, and she was also not allowed to touch water. She doesn't know why he has helped her so much. He took her for a walk and revealed that he has a hobby of collecting treasures, so she is also considered a rare treasure. Suddenly, there was news that a group of people were exploring outside the mountain. Since there was no significant activity, he told his observers to hold off on any action. He then informed her that this island has many traps he set up because there had been several thieves who tried to steal the treasures he had accumulated. He regards treasures as precious as his own life. Surprisingly, Little Orchid knows all about every treasure he has, from inside the house to on his person. So, he knew she was also extremely valuable and took her with him. A dark shadow appeared and seemed worried about her, but this brother ignored it all. He then led her to a cellar locked with his voice recognition. He led her into the secret chamber where he kept most of his treasures. He has traveled everywhere and would buy anything precious based on his intuition. He wanted Little Orchid to help him appraise these items. Seeing that she recognized each item, he ran to get more. While she was appraising, she encountered a sphere she knew nothing about. Suddenly, she touched the wall, and the word duck appeared. As she ducked, the floor below collapsed, causing her to fall down. She saw this stone glowing and luckily braced herself before the impact. She chased after the stone and accidentally met the demon god again. Meanwhile, the brother kept listening to the shadow's complaints, but he thought that having a treasure like Little Orchid among other treasures was not a concern. At this time, we learned that this shadow and the brother are people of the shadow of the 3 realms. Their goal is to find someone with enough power to act as a bridge to lead the dark creatures to this 3 realms. The group exploring outside is from the house of Dung Tien. They came to investigate the island but found no inhabitants. However, there is still a legend about a mountain estate, so they had to investigate further. But someone who emerged from the water informed Dung Tien that this island had been shifted to create a maze that hides its true image, and perhaps Dung Tien's heavenly eye is the only thing that can break it. Vong Mang said that those who can pass through the barrier of the hidden heaven island must be born from the earth. Now, unless it is the reincarnation of No Kong, perhaps no one else can enter, but they remember that another person was also born from stone, and that person is none other than Qu Yuyan. Qu Yuyan already knew about the shadow of the 3 realms, so no one else is more suitable for this matter than Qu Yuyan. Meanwhile, Little Orchid kept blaming the demon god because he did not keep his promise to her. Only the mountain owner was good to her and gave her a usable body. She blamed the demon god for not keeping his word, but he believed that he never promised to find her a problem-free body from the start. She refused to accept it and still believed that the demon god owed her. At that moment, they stepped into the maze set by the mountain owner. The first trap was fire, followed by water, so the demon god had to lift her to avoid it. Then came wood, an illusion was created, an illusion about how disappointed Little Orchid's master was with her. She was deceived, but the demon god was not. Right after that, the two were taken into another spell. Both were taken back to the time when the battle between the demon god and the red earth was happening. To break the formation, the demon god needed to enter that battle. Little Orchid Flower wanted to go, but he forbade her because entering would cause the murderous aura to damage her body. Suddenly, the demon god recalled that moment when he was fighting the red earth and was sneakily bitten by someone, causing him to be hit by the red earth strike and defeated. His body immediately fell into an illusion, causing Little Orchid Flower to shout and even bite his neck to wake him up. Still resentful about his defeat in the past, he heard a pitiful cry and had to return to his body. They quickly escaped the formation. Just then, they fell, and the demon god had to embrace her to help her land safely. When she opened her eyes, she saw that man again, but the demon god asked her to leave him immediately. The man realized this was the unfaithful person Little Orchid Flower was talking about and looking for, while the demon god saw the mountain owner as someone who liked to play with mud and whom Little Orchid Flower had praised. The mountain owner wondered why a demon god had no demonic power at all. The demon god thought that to fight dogs, one doesn't need demonic power. After arguing for a while, the mountain owner asked why the demon god came here. He simply needed the Tuc Nwang soil to create a new body for Little Orchid Flower. She blushed because the demon god cared for her so much. However, the mountain owner informed the demon god of the sad news that Tuc Nwang could only help Little Orchid Flower exist for 3 days, and that was if it was mixed with clay. The demon god was talking about a case made entirely of that precious soil. The mountain owner disagreed because the exclusive soil of this island couldn't be given away so easily. So, the demon god took out a precious black gemstone, which made the mountain owner's eyes light up. Fortunately, the shadow held back in time. But one gemstone wasn't enough, so the demon god flicked out a few more, making the mountain owner unable to refuse even if he wanted to. The mountain owner then took them to a place to rest before going to get the soil. Originally, the mountain owner also wanted to let the demon god try to create a body entirely out of Tuc Nwang. If successful, the mountain owner could help create bodies for the shadow of the 3 realms to come here without fear of the light. But the demon god had known from the start who the mountain owner was. His demonic eye could see through everything, so he knew the mountain owner was a shapeless shadow demon. The clay body of the mountain owner was also at its limit, and there was no replacement yet because the one used for replacement had been given to Little Orchid Flower. The demon god told Little Orchid Flower to stay here and wait for the mountain owner to bring the soil, while he ran off for a while. Later, the mountain owner brought the sand, and Little Orchid Flower gave him the bag of black spirit stones. Little Orchid Flower doubted the demon god's words about the mountain owner, so she pressed him for answers, and the mountain owner found an excuse to leave. But then Little Orchid Flower saw a crack on the mountain owner's face. As soon as the demon god returned, she told him about it, and the demon god began to use magic to create a new body. So, Little Orchid Flower went outside to not disturb him. Unexpectedly, the demon god wanted to use this pile of Tuc Nwang to create a new body for the war god Zich Dia. Noticing something was amiss, Little Orchid returned inside and realized that the demon god had been deceiving her all along. The reason the demon god had kept Yuyantan's soul was to have the opportunity to resurrect and seek revenge. She became upset and agitated, even though the demon god assured her that he would definitely make a body for her, just not right now. But she wouldn't accept it and left her body to enter a new one. Afterward, she had a new, intact body. The warlord, seeing that she seemed to have a complete new body, immediately had the shadow capture the demon god to extract the method of creating bodies with Tuc Nwang from him. He tried to warn Little Orchid to stay away from the warlord, but she now only saw the demon god as a deceiver and acted as if she no longer knew him. She also bluntly stated that she knew the warlord was no good, but the warlord still needed something from her and wanted her to follow him. Since Little Orchid now wanted to oppose the demon god, she chose to follow the warlord. He warmly led her away, regardless of her insults. Meanwhile, outside on the island, Qiu Yuyan used magic to recreate the seal that the Queen Mother had once used to seal the shadow of the 3 realms, and thus the entire island was overturned. The warlord inside suddenly felt a tremor and knew that the spell formation had been broken. They never expected the island to hide within its own shadow. If Qiu Yuyan had not arrived, they probably wouldn't have found it until next year. Knowing time was short, the warlord made Hoalan faint. Qiu Yuyan had asked Dung Tian to mobilize the heavenly soldiers here because they could not risk stepping into the territory of the shadow of the 3 realms. Qiu Yuyan also ordered 2 of Dung Tian's generals to arrange spells around the island, but 2 people from the human faction decided to charge in themselves. Dung Tian's general asked Qu Yuyan to refrain from going onto the island and to stay here to recover his magical power, as the spell to break the seal earlier had used up half of his power. Qu Yuyan respected their goodwill and stayed to recover. At that time, the warlord had taken Ho-Alan to the sealed gate of the shadow of the three realms. The warlord did not expect Ho-Alan to resonate so much with the gate and even break one of the Queen Mother seals. The warlord did not know who Ho-Alan truly was, and at this time, he also knew that someone had come onto the island. The warlord met with several high-ranking false images. They reported that a seal had been lost, so the lower-level demons could spill out. Although they only lived for 2 hours, that was enough time for the warlord to break the remaining 2 seals. The 2 humans from the human faction had entered the island but saw no creatures. Suddenly, the brother was stabbed in the neck by a shadow and turned to retaliate, only to be sneak attacked again. So, he told the head of the Dung family to unleash attacks to eliminate all the shadows around, leaving him just one hand. He then unleashed a powerful strike to blow away the shadows, while the brother only needed one hand to recover. But the shadows kept coming, so he used magic to accelerate the growth of creatures, because all creatures grow and then die, and these shadows were no different. Dung Tian's subordinates had cast spells all over the island, and soon, pillars of light would descend, eventually covering the entire island. Meanwhile, the warlord felt remorse for doing this to Ho-Alan. The shadowy figure, a chief general, wanted the mountain owner to drain Little Orchid Flower's life force to break the seal quickly. He did not want to do this, but continuous pressure from his superiors forced the mountain owner to withdraw a portion of Little Orchid Flower's life force and successfully break the second seal. However, 2 subordinates of Dung Tian had also arrived, so the shadowy overlord decided to send out his shadowy general to battle. Meanwhile, the demon god was being invaded by this shadow into his memories. The shadow managed to enter and did not understand why there was so much knowledge about ancient magic inside. While he thought the demon god had no demonic power, upon seeing a cage with many sealing spells on it, the shadow risked entering. He realized all of the demon god's demonic power was inside. The demon god's demonic power decided to teach this intruder a lesson. The demon god made him kneel and then beat him up. The shadow begged for mercy from the demon god because he could show him how to defeat the shadow of the 3 realms, but the demon god did not care because he did not need to be a hero. The shadow offered a way to escape the confining formation as a bargaining chip, but the demon god believed he could find his own way out. However, the shadow claimed that if the demon god delayed, Little Orchid Flower would die. Seeing that the demon god seemed to care about Little Orchid Flower, the shadow turned hostile and acted superior. The shadow summoned 3 of his generals. The subordinates of Dung Tian attacked with a stone dragon but did not leave a scratch. The 3 generals then decided to split into 3 wings to handle each pair, with this shadow general staying here. The bird-headed one flew up the mountain and beheaded one of Dung Tian's subordinates in an instant, while the other rushed to where 2 humans were and defeated the immortal man in a moment. On the main front, the one capable of summoning the stone dragon had been poisoned by the shadow without realizing it. Knowing the poison would soon spread throughout his body, he used a stone to push his brother away from the island and instructed him to call 9 profundities into action. This person then decided to use all his magical power for one last push before dying. At that time, the bird-headed one had also dealt with the other subordinate in the pair and sensed someone very powerful above, so he flew up. Seeing one of Dung Tian's subordinates escaping, he threw a strike that knocked him down, and then he encountered 9 profundities recovering his magical power. The 2 humans from the human side were now struggling because the old Dung could not unleash all his strength as it would completely kill the recovering brother. But without his recovery, the old man would not be able to withstand this opponent. So, the old Dung told him to leave to recover quickly for 9 profundities, while he would try his best to hold on. He believed he could last an hour, but the other thought he was overestimating himself. Of course, that was a lie, but he was still willing to risk his life. He felt he had the potential to take this one down with him, so he unleashed more power. The recovering brother, while flying to find help, was hit by the other subordinate and fell down near the demon god, sensing the demonic power inside. He went in to check and found the demon god there. 9 profundities, at this time, saw the bird-headed one waiting for him to recover his magical power because he did not want to fight a 9 profundities with only half his power. At this moment, he revealed that he had killed 2 of Dung Tian's subordinates and dropped one whose fate was unknown, causing 9 profundities, who had never been angry before, to be unable to contain his fury. He created an endless barrier to trap him, and the shadow tried to run but could not escape. Here, 9 profundities tied him up and subjected him to endless lightning strikes. The bird-headed one would forever suffer in this barrier without the possibility of transcendence. Meanwhile, the recovering brother was informed by the remaining subordinate that this was the demon god, but his demonic power was currently sealed. He decided to free the demon god because he saw that the demon god was also being restrained by the shadow, so he thought the enemy of his enemy might be a friend. Meanwhile, the demon god had resigned himself to being attacked in return, as long as he was released. But realizing that his magical power was recovering, he decided he no longer needed that person. Get lost, I don't need you anymore. Once I restore my magical power, no barrier can stop me. He then escaped and asked who had restored him. Knowing this brother was useful, the demon god took both of them along to follow the shadow. Wherever the shadow ran, the demon god pursued, until they reached the stone-headed one, where Qiu Yuyan had finished him off and saved Elder Dung. The recovered brother came to help him, and the demon god and Qiu Yuyan then asked the shadow about the location of Hoa Lan and the gate of the shadow image. He wouldn't speak because he would be killed either way, but Dung Tian's subordinate knew the place, so the shadow was no longer useful and was dealt with by the two strongest individuals. The demon god informed Qiu Yuyan that the island would dissolve if it touched water, so he would go to save people and deal with all the shadows on the island. Qiu Yuyan, on the other hand, would perform a spell to bring this place into the real world and make it rain. He would take the recovered brother with him, while Elder Dung would accompany Qiu Yuyan to prevent anyone from disrupting Qiu Yuyan's spellcasting. The demon god then went ahead, vowing not to meet Qiu Yuyan again. At that moment, the warlord was about to open the third seal when the demon god arrived to stop him. The three gatekeepers were surprised that the strongest one was here. The demon god wanted them to go back and tell their empress that he would soon come for them and destroy them. He then blew away the gate, and the remaining shadow general quickly fled. The demon god called for recovery, and he said his name was Tu Ham. He noticed that Hoa Lan had been drained of her spiritual power, and if they had been any later, she would have been beyond saving. He was furious with the warlord and decided to make the warlord experience the cruelest death in the three realms. Meanwhile, Qiu Yuyan knew he only had enough magical power to summon the sun, so he asked Elder Dung to create rain. The demon tribe's commander and strategist had also arrived and decided to wait for Qiu Yuyan to act first. The shadow that had fled was suddenly hit by the demon god's spell but was unharmed. The demon god had actually used a spell to lock some of the shadow's power for Dung Tian's subordinate to take revenge. Since the shadow could no longer use poison, it was beaten down by his transformation into several monkey arms. He didn't kill the shadow because he knew if it fled, there was still a way back to the shadow of the three realms. He wanted the shadow to take him there. Tu Ham thought going there would be a death sentence, but he didn't want his teammate's sacrifice to be in vain. The warlord, knowing he couldn't defeat the demon god, still had to fight and not run away. The warlord, seeing the demon god's attack, could only put up a defense, but the force was so great that the warlord was blown away. The demon god didn't know that Hoa Lan had woken up. The warlord was blown away and saw that he had only one option left. The demon god tried to explain to Hoa Lan, but she refused to listen. He said that reviving Zichdia was part of his plan. He had told her before, but at that time, she was in Yuyantan's body and couldn't hear anything. He believed that he didn't want to give her this half-hearted body but wanted to give her a proper one. But the reason she wouldn't listen was that she didn't want to forgive the demon god. Suddenly, at this moment, all the shadows were being pulled to one side. They were absorbed by the mountain owner, who then flew to where the demon god was and created 8 clones of little orchid flower. The mountain owner distributed the 8 clones and the real little orchid flower across the island. The demon god only had one chance to save little orchid flower before the mountain owner killed the real one. Somehow, the demon god managed to teleport to the real little orchid flower and saved her. He said he could sense where she was, which made her realize that the demon god had never abandoned her. The sun had also risen, so he knew that 9 profundities had finished his task. 9 profundities had to use all his magical power to summon the sun, and the old Dung pushed the seawater up to the sky and then poured it down onto the island. The leader of the demon clan and the military advisor saw this as a rare opportunity to eliminate 9 profundities once and for all. Meanwhile, the mountain owner came to meet little orchid flower for the last time, admitting that he had harmed her for the dignity of his kind. He did not ask for her forgiveness. She truly could not forgive the mountain owner, but because he had helped her a lot when she first arrived, she would keep the memory of the mountain owner in her heart and never forget him. The mountain owner then peacefully departed, and the demon god saw that the island of Thienan would now disappear from the world. At that time, the military advisor of the demon clan quickly rushed in and caused 9 profundities to fade away momentarily and reported the action to Vong Mang. Vong Mang decided to send the heavenly general on a journey through space, while the demon god and little orchid flower would return to part 1 of the movie, and here the story ends.